Good morning and welcome to Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. When I received this suggestion from Athens University Professor expressing the reason why Buddhas in the old art are depicted as wearing a folded Greek tunic, I was intrigued. And then I remembered that there was a reason for that and recalled my visit. About 10 kilometers away from Lonavala in near Bombay, 10.9 to be more precise, there are beautiful caves, 2 century old, Karla caves. And they were made about 200 years before Alexander came to Punjab at the head of his almost invincible army. But the Greeks had come to Mumbai about 200 years before that, and they influenced this cave, which is a beautiful cave. And there were 6 caves which I found the inscriptions in very terse language, name, native place, little else. An additional detail that the person who donated the money for me was Yamuna. Yamuna is a Greek. So that cave showed me the beautiful sculptures of Buddha. And there are other Buddhist caves, complexes nearby, but nothing in India compares with these caves, plunged deep into a cliff with a soaring ceiling ribbed with age-blackened teak, the richly ornamented pillars along the walls march toward the stupa in the distant end. And this is where the monks once walked endlessly round the relic of Buddha. High on the pillars, neat lines of Brahmi script commemorate the donations who contributed, and I said the biggest contribution was by the Greeks. So evidently, the Greeks impacted this, and that's why the tunics which are there around Buddha are neatly folded tunics, while the Indians would just drape them, not fold them. If you look at it, the folding was done much later in India. So it seemed at first that although Alexander and others who came spent a year and a half in the subcontinent defeating local kings and then they left. But the Greeks stayed there even during Chandragupta Maurya and Greeks all the time. And even then they did not go back. Just northwest of India, which is now Afghanistan, and the Central Asian republics, there was a Greek kingdom called Bactria, Bactria. Now Bactria was a kingdom right on the edge of India. And this kingdom was Greek oriented, Greek civilized, and those Bactrian kings were famous for their wealth and 1,000 cities. They were constantly at war, sparring with their overlords, raiding the upstart Parthians. And then, when a political vacuum developed in North India, they exploited it. They came to India. Then again, the exact sequence of the events is not clear. But it seems that the Bactrian king Demetrius I invaded India in the early 2nd century before Christ, conquering a vast territory in northwest. Soon after, probably, as a consequence of civil war, the Indian province became an independent Greek state. And the rulers of the new Indo-Greek kingdom soon governed more of India than Alexander had conquered. So the parts of India remained there under the rule of the Greeks, in the northern India until the 1st century before Christ. And this you would see, that's why the Bamiyan Buddha, built at that time, is a historic UNESCO heritage site, was rather. So, well, there was a comment by Mr. Singh Jaspal of Mississauga, why not take the roundels of the hair around Buddha as heads as well. Mr. Singh, as I wrote, that's a different story, but it's a great story. And I'll take that up detail, the hair roundels around the head of Buddha, in my next talk next Saturday. Coming back, they were too few, too isolated, so what the Greeks did, they adopted Indian customs. And towards the end of the 2nd century, the ambassador of Indo-Greek king Antilicidus set up a huge imposing stone pillar beside a Hindu temple honoring Vasudeva. So while the Greeks in their dress started impacting Indians, the Indians started impacting them culturally and they started worshipping Vasudeva. And Heliodorus was the first person to do it. But the amazing thing is that the Greeks at that time had no definite religion. Apollo, Diana, all the Greek gods and goddesses, Zeus, Iris and others. So they were attracted to a different Indian religious tradition, that is Buddhism. Now Buddhism had already spread in northwest India by the time Alexander had arrived. And it continued to gain converts throughout the Mauryan era. Ashoka was an energetic patron. He founded monasteries and building stupas and sending missionaries. He commissioned dozens of monumental inscriptions outlining the ethical precepts of Buddhism. And when they were being engraved and the Buddha was to be made, the Greek impact on the Indian artisans and the Greek artisans, they combined together, and thus the tunics came into being. But then the beauty is that this was the first time that the Greek who had settled in northwest, which later on became Gandhara, from where the Gandhari came in Mahabharata fame. So by the time Bactrians had conquered northwestern India, many Eastern Greeks were familiar with Buddhism. And within a century of the conquest, some of the most important men in Indo-Greek kingdom identified themselves as Buddhists. I was reading and I was impressed that a provincial governor named Theodorus, for example, is known to have dedicated a Buddhist reliquary. Another Greek governor established a stupa, and many wealthy Greeks like the benefactors in Karla, they commemorated and are celebrated as donors of the Buddhist cave monasteries. Now, interesting thing, the ruler Menander I, who brought the Greek kingdom in India to the pinnacle of strength and prosperity, was as dedicated a Buddhist as Ashoka was. He patronized Buddhist shrines, put the 8-spoke Dharma wheel on his coins. Now, you see, Dharma wheel is now the sign of Indian national flag. But first time it was used by the Greek king Menander I. And when he stuck his coins, he used his wheel on the coin. And long after his reign as the protagonist of Buddhist text, he was a very capable man and he debated with the learned monk. So when he died, his ashes were buried in the stupas, and they are as much revered in Northwest as Buddha himself. In Texla was their capital. A Buddhist shrine and a stupa stood beside temple to the Hindu gods, and temples of Greek gods stand side by side. Now, then the history takes a turn. The beginning of the first century CE, just as the Indo-Greek kingdoms were collapsing, contacts between India and the rest of the world were renewed. Now the merchants started arriving in the Egyptian city of Alexandria, and then they discovered that the monsoon winds could carry their ships much more quickly, swiftly, and safely from the mouth of Red Sea to the west coast of India, Porbandar, Mumbai, and the complete west coast. And that route of trade became the cultural route as well. So, spurred and by the Roman demand for the Indian spices, more and more people came, they crossed the sea, and beautifully, Pliny the Elder, you have read history, Pliny is a great historian, he said that 100 million cestus of gold and silver were being traded to the Indian merchants each year. 100 million cestus. Now, cestus was a Roman coin, and that has been discovered periodically by archaeologists all over India. So 1 million of these coins were coming to India by way of trade. And naturally when the traders came, they wanted to win over the local population. So they started donating money. And then they saw the beautiful caves being built. They said, okay, you do it, we'll give you the money. And to satisfy the ego of those donors, they started copying their dress code. Despite this contact with Indians and India, the Greeks of the Mediterranean remained virtually ignorant of Buddhism. But Greco-Roman description of the Indian region confuses the Hindu, the Jain, and the Buddhist traditions. For them, it was the Hindu king. It was not a separate region. It was a Hindu god. Buddha was a Hindu god like Vishnu, Mahesh, Shiv, and so on. So they were quite influenced by accounts of Germans' first encounter with the Indian saints. And these Indian sages were called gymnophosists, the naked philosophers. The sages used to go naked, as Naga sadhus nowadays go. So they call them gymnosophists. Gymnosophist is a naked philosopher. And the first explicit mention of Buddha is made in a text by Clement of Alexandria, who noted very clearly in his writing that a sect of India philosophers revere a certain Bauta, Boutta. He didn't write Buddha, but Bauta, as a god on account of his holiness. Then there is another reference. If you have studied the Christian theology, you would see Saint Jerome. And there is a clear reference which describes Buddha as a founder of the sect of Gymnosophists. Now, since they were thinking that all Buddhists and Hindus are the same, they said, well, these Naga sadhus must be the followers of Buddha. And despite its obscurity, Buddhism has influenced an important movement in Greek thought. Now, we talk of green philosophy. But in the Greek philosophy, they borrowed from Buddhism. When he returned to Greece, Pyrrho taught the goal of existence should be freedom from worry. And the only way to achieve this freedom from worry is to suspend all judgment about the nature of reality. Now imagine the parallel with Buddhism, and particularly the idea of virtue as an escape from suffering. I can't say how much Pyrrho was inspired by Buddhist doctrine, but he took this doctrine and propagated it as his philosophy. In India, where so many Greeks became Buddhists, and patterns, the encounters between them started between East and West, and that had lasting consequences. And for centuries it was customary to represent Buddha with symbols, footprints, empty seat, or a Bodhi tree. And then the Greek kingdom anthropomorphic representation of Buddha began to appear. Now, here is very important. The first image of Buddha, particularly associated with Gandhara region, shows clear signs of Greek influence. They stand like Greek statues. Their expression on the face, their hairstyles resemble those of the Greek antecedents. They wear Greek-style tunics with finely folded drapery, which is very characteristic of the Hellenic Greek art. And the Greek art shape, the evolution of the Buddhist images now seems clear. But exactly how and when this influence was exerted is uncertain. So it was a continuous process. You can't simply say this was the year when it happened. No, it was spread over centuries. So virtually all extant examples of Gandhara style of art appeared after the fall of Greek kingdoms, and so you can't say whether it was the Bactrian kings or the Indo-Greek craftsmen, but it was a combination of the two. And the Greek sculpture influenced the development of Buddhist images directly through the medium of trade. Goods were carried into Central Asia by the merchants. There's another theory that the Greek artists and the Greek ideas traveling east on the busy Red Sea route that connected Roman Alexandria with ports of Western India. Now, the means of transmission matter less than the fact that the models and iconography of Greek art were integral to the development of standardized image of Buddha. So Greek helped standardize about a clear form what image should be. And that image has a long history. And see the movement into from northwest near Afghanistan, moving to Central Asia, China, Japan. So they start in Patliputra in Bihar, go on to west, come from Maharashtra another way, and then from Gandhara in Afghanistan, they go to Central Asia, all the 5 stands, go to China, Korea, go to Japan. So, but whenever it went there, in whichever country, there was some change. But even today, if you go to shrines and sanctuaries, which are scattered across Asia and beyond, you would find traces. They are faint traces, but they are real traces of the Greek encounter with Buddhism 2 millennia back. 2 millennia back. And so no wonder that the folded tunics, although part of the Greek culture, became an integral part of the Buddhist representation, and it traveled across the globe. Now here one thing I like to point out, that this interaction was 2 ways. While the Greek mode of dress impacted the statue makers in India, Buddhists, the Indian culture, as I told you, the stupas, the architecture Indian was adopted by the Greek. So the pillars are Hellenic, the roofs and the tops are Indian. So this was an amalgamation of the 2 cultures, the real union. And Indo-Hellenic art was born, which resulted in Buddha having finely folded tunics as an integral part of his representation. Thank you.